We got it up here.
Oh, I don't know about the state.
Oh, no, I mean, it's kind of certified.
You think it was?
Well, that's in there because she called me and I told her
Our meeting is called to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner.
Here.
Reverend Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Here.
Mr. Jones.
Here.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Here.
Mr. Raleigh.
Here.
Mayor Saunders.
Here.
Mr. Shanks.
Here.
Mr. Vogler.
Here.
Please stand for the invocation. Remain standing for the pledge tonight given by member L.J. Larry Campbell, Jr.
Can we bow our heads, please? Father, we thank you for such a beautiful day that thou hast made and allow us to partake of. We thank you for life, health, and strength. We thank you for the great city of Danville, all of the employees of the city that make the operation run smoothly. We pray tonight as council will make major decisions that will affect the citizens of our community, that you will give us wisdom and knowledge and understanding. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Campbell. We do have recognition tonight, and I do want to ask Dr. Stanley B. Jones, Danville Public School Superintendent, to please come forward. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to just take a few minutes of your time this evening to give you an overview of the school division, where we are during my 6 months here. You've seen, you will recall much of this from our presentation last week in the joint school board city council meeting. So I'm going to walk through a fairly condensed version of what I shared with you last week. I know I shared a lot of information with you, and I'm sure you have questions. But essentially what I want to do is share my observations of what I've learned about our strengths and challenges as a school division, including reviewing our accountability results, talk about what we're doing in terms of professional development to address the issue of student performance. I'm going to talk a little bit about discipline data. I know that's something that the council is interested in, and I know the community is interested in, so I'll talk about that. I know you're also very interested in the things that we've done to address the issues that have been brought to light at George Washington High School, so I'll address that. Talk a little bit about what we're doing to ensure our schools are safe, and then review just a few items in the governor's biennial budget that may have implications for Danville Public Schools, and then I'll end with a little bit of information about our capital improvement plan. So, Gary, that first slide just kind of gives you an overview of what I intend to talk about this evening. This is really an overview of my observations during my 6 months here, and I'll go through this fairly quickly. One of the things that we're fortunate to have in Danville Public Schools is a very dedicated and experienced staff. There's a strong commitment. You know, when I think about all the things that we've been faced with, particularly those things that have made it to the paper, I know that the citizens of our community are concerned about schools. That's a good thing. I think we have decent student-teacher ratios. There's always concern about size. I think there's significant leadership potential among our staff. There's certainly an opportunity to improve learning. That's one of our challenges, but it's also a strength. I think we're well governed, particularly given the support from City Council and the governance of the school board, and I think we certainly have a high-quality group of staff members, students, parents, and community members. Our challenges, I think, are primarily what have we done to build capacity among our staff. So that first item, systemic professional learning for all staff. How do we get better? So you're going to hear me talk a little bit about how we're addressing that, how we use our human resources, what's our focus. Sometimes in organizations, the personalities get in the way of the work. I don't really care about personalities, I care about the work. Improving relationships with the community. The community's lost some faith in us. quite candidly. Academic performance, again, you know already during my short tenure, I tend to be fairly candid about both our strengths and challenges. I think there's some things we can do to expand our academic opportunities, including dual enrollment, advanced placement, career and technical education. You know that one of the things that's challenged us as a school division, which has an impact on our resources, is declining enrollment. This provides an overview of, if you probably get a little dizzy when you think about accountability and how states determine how schools are performing. And once again, we have changes to how we describe our performance. So on the right side of the screen there, or of your handout, you see the new accountability ratings for school divisions. And you'll note the idea of partially accredited approaching benchmark as compared to accredited with warning, partially accredited improving school, and partially accredited warned school. The reason for that language is to really be more specific about schools. To say that a school is underperforming is one thing. To talk about is it making progress is something different. So these new accountability results, I think, lend themselves to a more accurate picture of what's happening in our schools. So you'll see there that we certainly are moving in the right direction in terms of accreditation. The one school that's still status is to be yet determined is Woodbury Hills Elementary School. And I'll be attending a meeting first part of February. I've already attended one meeting with the Virginia Department of Education to discuss the status of Woodbury Hills. This is just an overview of our professional development plan. So again, that first slide, first bullet talks about how do we improve accountability, gives you again a summary of where we are. And you'll note there's a clear need to provide ongoing support to administrators and schools to support the alignment between planning, instruction, assessment, and progress monitoring. What I said this past Tuesday is that a third grader's learning experience in one school, elementary school, should be identical to a third grader's experience in another elementary school. It shouldn't matter what school they're in terms of what they learn. So when I talk about aligning instructional strategies and what kids learn, that's essentially what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about stifling the creativity of teachers or stifling the climate in the classroom. But what a student learns in third grade or fifth grade or in Algebra 1 should be pretty much the same across all of our schools. So this simply gives you an idea of what we're doing to address that. The second bullet there, the instructional framework, is really how we teach, how we assess how we teach, and what we do when students don't learn. So you see on the far right those things that we're doing to address how we teach, what we do when students struggle, et cetera. So that's just a list of things that we've done to begin to really increase the rigor and relevance learning. I'll note one thing on there. You look at that GW High School Tech Initiative. Let me just tell you real quickly what that is. On March 5th and 6th, we'll be sending 30 teachers from George Washington High School to a Google Summit for Educators conference in Charlottesville. Why? We use Google Classroom, we use the Google format in our school division in terms of how we engage in digital content. And you've heard me say this, our students are digital natives, we're immigrants. I wasn't born when the internet existed. So our students are used to using technology to get information. We want to make sure that our staff have the skills to be able to enable students to really master the use of digital technology. Now let me just also mention this too. The other thing about digital content is cheaper. A chemistry textbook will cost $130 if we buy a hard textbook, and once it's printed, it's obsolete. A digital textbook might cost $30. So digital content typically is much more agile, can be updated online, and usually less expensive. I won't go through the rest of that, but those are just other things that we're doing. Those last items, assessing for learning. What do we do when a student struggles? So our assessment process helps us determine what we do when a student is struggling in reading, struggling in math. And this second slide, again, speaks more to the things that we're doing to build culture and climate in our schools. I shared last Tuesday night that there's a school in East LA, after 8 years of using PBIS, no teachers wrote referrals. So positive behavior intervention supports is how we create the climate that's conducive for learning in our schools, how we create those expectations consistently across all of our schools. So that's what we're doing to address the issue of climate in our schools. Also, we'll share with you, if you look at toward the bottom of that slide, you'll notice there the leadership development. We have a leadership academy for people in our school division who want to become principals, who want to be in instructional leadership positions. That's something that has not been in place in Danville Public Schools. So we're investing in our own staff to build leadership capacity for our staff. We've done an HR boot camp. I know I've talked with some of you individually about to what extent are we aligning our expectations with our staff with teaching and learning. So those are the things that indicate what we're doing to ensure that our teacher performance system matches teaching and learning. What do we do if a teacher's struggling? How do we help them improve? So this is just a quick overview of the things that we're doing related to professional development. Now this slide is busy and confusing and you probably don't understand it, but essentially these are all the things we're doing. The positive behavior intervention supports. Learning focus is our instructional framework. Measures of academic progress is our assessment system. You'll see observations 360 at the top. That's how we look at how teachers are teaching. All those things should be wrapped around student learning. So this is a model of what we do to ensure every practice, every teaching practice, how we assess our administrators, what we do when students struggle is all aimed on our main mission, which is improving student learning. So that's a confusing slide, but essentially it's the professional development plan in a schematic. This is an ideal structural foundation, our mission, vision, values, and goals, how we behave, how we assess our performance. This is a theoretical model of what an effective school division would look like in terms of what our goals are, what our vision is, what our values are, what our mission is. So the previous slide is that in practice in Danville Public Schools. This is what the research says about best practices. And note a couple things here. Formative evaluation, that is when a student struggles and we give them immediate feedback, that's formative evaluation. You'll see there, that has a significant impact on student gains as related to academic achievement. Student-teacher relationships. We grew up in a generation where it didn't really matter how our teachers felt about them, about us, and how we felt about them, but we don't live in that generation anymore. So students feeling that the teachers care about them has an impact on learning. So you'll see that student-teacher relationships has a huge impact. So it's not so much who teaches me, but how they feel about me as a person. So relationships are important. Prior student achievement. I think I explained last Tuesday that if we have a student that has not had a high-quality preschool experience, and they arrive in kindergarten, and those students who have had a high-quality preschool experience, that prior achievement, the extent to which they've been exposed to literacy, that's going to have a huge impact on that student for the rest of their academic career. So we're very fortunate here to have the DRF in our backyard and to really have worked across preschools in our community to address the issue of prior achievement through quality preschool programs. That has a significant impact on how students perform. And then you heard me in the beginning talk about our professional development plan. Well, the reason that that's significant is if we don't build capacity among our staff, we can't get better. So again, on the left are those things that have the biggest impact on student achievement. On the right are those things that don't have that much of an impact, like class size. There's a lot of research about class size. Class size really doesn't have as much of an impact that people think on. Now, it's a huge debate about, but the research would suggest, compared to the things on the left, class size is not that significant. Now, these are the issues and things that we've done to address the issues at George Washington High School. In particular, you know that our Executive Director of School Safety, his office is on the campus at George Washington High School. We have reassigned our school security officers. There's 8 of them at George Washington High School. They report directly to the Executive Director of School Safety. Previously, they reported to the principal. If you visit George Washington High School, which I would encourage you to do, you will note something different from your previous visits this year. You will note that when you walk into school now, the school security officers are in zones. So if I'm in A wing and my zone is A wing, I am in A wing supervising that area of the building all day long. So there's never a time when students aren't supervised. And I strongly encourage you, if you haven't been to George Washington since 2015, to visit. I think you'll notice the difference in the climate there. And the reason is supervision is when all the adults are out and everybody's supervising. All teachers are now required during the class change to step outside their classroom and observe students in the hallway. That's called supervision. More adults, assessing, watching, monitoring what happens in our schools. And there's a difference in the school now, but you have to feel it yourself. So I would strongly encourage you to visit GW if you hadn't had an opportunity to do that. Last week there was a question about our alternative school and how students enroll in the alternative school. There's really two ways. Students can apply and want to be in a smaller learning environment and be admitted to the alternative ed program, or they can be placed there through a disciplinary process. And I think I shared that information is not here, but we've doubled enrollment at Langston Focus School since the beginning of the year. There were 43 students at the beginning of the year. There's 100 students at Langston Focus School now. So the enrollment there has doubled. And then the last thing, and in the next slide we'll explain it a little bit better, what do we do when a student has struggled behaviorally? What happens to that child? What we do now is when a student has struggled behaviorally and they're placed at Langston, we look at the student, we look at his academic performance, we look at their behavior, and we look at the family. And if there's something we need to do to support that parent on being a better parent, then we connect that parent with the resources in our community. That's different. And so the idea is when a student has struggled and they're in a different placement or in a different setting, what are we doing to help build skills not only for that child, but for his family? I have not yet to meet a parent who has not wanted their child to be successful. I've met plenty of parents who don't know how to do that, but I haven't met any parents who don't want that. So this is designed to help those parents who may not know how to do that, eliminate that as a problem. We will help you become a better parent. So that's what that last bullet represents. This is the discipline data for this year as of December 17, 2015. Student suspensions are down 32% at the high school as compared to this time last year, and 44% at the middle school as compared to last year. Now, some people might perceive that as the superintendent being weak, and they're entitled to feel that way. But this is more of a result of what we do before a student is suspended. And one of the things that we do that's a little different now is that if a student is looking at a long-term consequence, the first level of appeal is with the principal. So the principal can pull that parent in, pull that child in, walk through their behavior and say, we got a problem with Johnny. How are we going to work together to make sure this problem is addressed? As a result of that, again, you heard me say, parents want their children to be in schools. So when a parent is looking at a situation where their child may be out of school, suddenly the motivation may change. That has had a direct impact on the number of suspensions. So this doesn't indicate that we've gotten softer. It indicates that we're really partnering more with our parents and trying to provide support to them to ensure that their children are successful academically and behaviorally. This is the reorganization that the board approved this year that was explained in the previous slides. You'll see the school security specialists, the school security officers report directly to the executive director of instruction. We have a director of student intervention services now. We have a school social worker, the intervention specialist at the preschool, and an intervention specialist at the secondary level. That team wraps themselves around a family that's struggling, and we pull that, we sort of do a case study approach, look at the family, look at the child, look at the parent, and then this team connects that family and that child to the resources, if it's mentoring, if it's parent counseling, whatever that might be. So this is using existing staff. We reorganize that existing staff into a team to try to support those students who might be struggling academically or behaviorally. Again, this gives you more detail about the Office of School Safety, Community Engagement, and Student Discipline. Dave Cochran is our executive director. You see the mission there is really to ensure that our schools are safe. The vision is to provide intervention. So what do we do when a student misbehaves? How do we intervene? And then the goal is to decrease the amount of instructional time lost. We know when students are out of school, they don't get better. So how do we help them get better so they can be successful? So this simply gives you the mission, vision, and goals for that particular office. These are the objectives of that office to increase the division-wide graduation rate. You may recall last week when I went through the review of headlines, our graduation rate has ticked up a little bit. Our SOL performance has ticked up a little bit. But the goal here is to really ensure that we continue to move in that direction. And if you look at item 4 there, reducing recidivism, we don't want repeat offenders. We want to nip it in the bud the first time. So the goal of this office is really to ensure that we connect the supports to the needs. I always show this slide because it shows what we control. We don't control who our students are, where they come from, how much money they have, what their economic status is, but we do control everything else. The investment in teachers, we have control of that. And what we do in terms of how we deliver instruction, we control that. But we do not control who our students are and what their background knowledge is. So this is simply to help the council and the public understand that we're making the investments on those things that we control to ensure that our schools get better. So what you've seen, I think, during my short tenure here is, do we have a common mission, vision, and are we working collectively toward the same goals to ensure our schools are getting better? We've had significant changes in leadership in Danville Public Schools. When you have significant changes in leadership, you have inconsistency. So what I've tried to do is study where we are and provide a consistent direction of where the school division is going. So that's essentially what this slide shows you, is that this is the direction we're moving in as a school division. Really beginning to actively engage the community in how we perform. These are the goals that are in my contract, and I'll say this again. I know Mr. Jones may smirk when I make this comment, but these are the things that are written in my contract. It's a legally binding contract, and if I don't perform, the board should fire me. I'm not afraid of accountability, but I truly believe we're going to get better as a school division. And so you'll note in here, this idea of all children. I'm here to serve all children, not just some. So these are the things that are written in my contract in terms of performance. I'm in the middle of a mid-year evaluation now with my board, and at the end of the year, these are the things that the board will examine to determine whether or not we're making sufficient progress. And I suspect that we will make sufficient progress. Are we going to be fully accredited as a school division next year? No. Will we make gains? Yes. So it'll be incremental. This is just a little bit about what I believe. You've seen this from me. I believe that the most important part of any relationship is trust. And certainly, I think the approach I've tried to take with my team is to be transparent, to be honest, to be blunt, to be candid about our challenges as a school division, and how I will lead. So this slide simply just communicates to the public who I am as a leader and what I believe. How we teach, what we teach, has a huge difference on how we perform. So that's why there's been an emphasis on really looking at the instructional framework and how we deploy instructional strategies across all of our schools. The question is, whose future are we preparing our students for? Our past or their future? And our goal as a school division, your goal as a city council, is to create the future we believe in for our children. Well, the future is very different from collaboration, creativity, problem solving. Our manufacturers, you ask manufacturers what skills they're looking for for creativity and problem solving. So these are the things that we're focusing on in terms of how we design instruction. And this idea of social responsibility. You've heard me talk about the things that we're trying to do to wrap around kids that struggle. Well, social responsibility is going to make or break them in life. So these are the skills we're preparing students for in the 21st century. A little bit about the governor's budget. Since 2010, there are 5,500 fewer teachers in the state of Virginia than there were 5 years ago. The governor is proposing adding an additional 2,500 teachers to the state. The enrollment of students across the state is actually up. And not only is the enrollment of students up across the state, it's up 4%. The enrollment of students of poverty is up across the state. So what that means is we have increasing demands, diminishing resources. So this is the governor's attempt to try to address some of that. You'll note that item 5 there is item 6 there is a proposed budget, a 2% salary increase in the second year of the biennium for staff. That certainly has implications for us. And then the second slide, again, more just general detail about standards of quality support positions. The governor is talking about more flexibility in terms of how we use support positions going into this legislative session. You'll note that last item there, increased funding for positive behavior intervention and support. Virginia is the #1 state in the country for referring students to the juvenile justice system. I don't know if you're aware of that or not. #1 in the country for referring students to the juvenile justice system. Virginia is. Does that mean we have the worst kids in the country? I don't think so. It may mean that we're not making the investment that we need to ensure our kids don't end up in the juvenile justice. So you'll see that the governor's proposing funding to address that. And you've heard me talk about what we're doing in Danville Public Schools to address it. This last slide, you'll note, since 2010, that last bullet, we've cut 189 positions. Since 2010, that's a largely result of the economic decline. 103 of those positions were teaching positions, 74 were support positions, and 12 were administrative positions. We anticipate, based on the proposed budget, that we'll be able to hire 6 additional teachers in this next biennium, or in this next year. And then last but not least, this is you've seen the 5-year capital improvement plan for Danville Public Schools. We're requesting that amount for fiscal year 2017. Of course, there's some agility there. The thing about capital improvement projects is that they can change. But this is what we're anticipating. We're also anticipating that our greatest need right now from a capital improvement perspective is Johnson Elementary School. And we are working now to really ensure that our capital improvement plan is the right plan. So we're working with the vendor now to take a second look at our capital improvement plan to ensure that it is indeed the plan going forward. I've covered a lot in a short period of time. Happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Question, Mr. Shanks.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jones, for being here. I have a few comments, but do you have the capability to go back to a slide near the very beginning?
I think so.
Probably about the 5th or 6th slide, the state rating system.
Okay. Yeah,
old and new.
That one, I think, is one you wanted. This one?
This one right here, yes,
Okay.
sir. This is the new ratings.
Yes, sir.
And this is where we stand when you get here, when you became superintendent.
Well, when I became superintendent, the state had not made a decision about how they were going to characterize
But this is based on the data prior to you getting here.
Exactly.
Okay, this is the first time I've seen this, and I understand that it's a good, positive way of rating schools, more positive than in the past.
I would say more accurate.
Okay. But since it is the first time we've seen this, I'm a little bit surprised about the partially accredited Warren schools, which is the majority of schools in the city. I just point that out, not to be negative or not to question you or the school board or the school system. I just think that's an important slide moving forward.
It is.
And I hope that slide will be distributed from here forward as you progress, as our system progresses.
Well, this is, if you were to go to the Virginia Department of Education website, these are the ratings you'd see. So this information is out in the public, and it is the new rating for our schools, and it's something that each spring, of course, after we have gone through that year of final testing toward the end of the year, usually in the fall is when our new accreditation ratings will come out. So this is a result of not only our performance prior to my arrival, but the new accreditation ratings that happened about the same time that I was arriving.
Okay, thank you very much for presenting that slide. That's very important. I just have a few comments. I want to say that I've taken a long time, first impressions are the most important part of a relationship a lot of times. I've taken a long time to develop my impression of you and the school board systems, school boards higher, and I have to tell you, I have 100% confidence in your leadership in leading us to the future. I love to see your presentation tonight with regard to the focus school, with what you're doing at GW. This safety and community investment and student discipline board that you've set up, I think that's fantastic. I just wanted to say, between our meeting last Tuesday night and tonight, I'm 100% sure that you are the person to lead us in our community into the future, and I appreciate you being here, and I look forward to working with you as the time goes on. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the support of all councilmen. I'll be the first to recognize, we have some work to do. And I think that the school board would say that we, the school board and the superintendent, and our staff are working very hard to move this division forward. And quite bluntly, we're going to make incremental gains, but it's not going to happen overnight. But I certainly appreciate your support.
Well, I'd like to follow up and just say your presentation has been very blunt, and I appreciate that. And I also appreciate, I would like to just say this, the school board, I think, has made a wonderful decision in bringing you to the city, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raleigh, Mr. Gilstrap, Mr. Campbell, and Mr. Vogler.
2 comments, Dr. Jones. First, you, staff, the Danville public school teachers, principals, y'all got a hell of a tough job, and I appreciate all you do. But my number 2 comment is most important to me. The decision makers in each school, I'm going to assume, are principals. And we have got to have strong and consistent principals. And it just makes me cry for students who want to learn, and there are a handful of them that won't let them learn. And I just think we've got to have strong leaders in those schools. I'm like you. I'm trying to save everybody too, but sooner or later we got to make some tough decisions, and I hope we have strong leaders that can do that.
We're in the middle of mid-year evaluations of our principals now, and I never served in the military, but one of the military sayings is what gets measured gets done.
Yes, sir.
And so that when you looked at when you saw the slides about the instructional framework and how we're monitoring teaching and learning, that's essentially what that is. What gets monitored gets done. Who's responsible for that? Right. Principals. But the role of central office is to support principals having the skills to be able to do that. Right. And so that's one of the things that we put a lot of effort and attention to, is developing that capacity among our leaders to really understand how to monitor instruction.
Right. And I would say this, Dr. Jones, in my 45 years work experience, problems that we see at GW and have read about and heard about, they didn't happen overnight, and they're not going to be solved overnight. So we're with you. I'm with you. I'm like Mr. Shanks. I think it's a good plan. Proof's in the pudding.
Thank you.
We're behind you.
Again, I encourage you to visit George Washington High School if you haven't done so recently.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Dr. Jones, thank you for being here, and I appreciate your candidness, and I hope you do not object to me being just as candid.
I would be surprised if you weren't, Mr.
Okay. I have 2 or 3 items, and I don't think they're either one will be long, but you indicated the teacher-student relationship. What are we doing to improve the teacher-school administration relationship? Well,
all relationships are important. And what sometimes makes the teacher-school administrator relationship difficult is one simple word: change. One of my favorite quotes is, the only folks that like change are babies. Adults typically don't like change. And so, unfortunately, part of what's happened in our system is there's been significant change. And I would imagine, and I don't want to speak for our teachers, but I would imagine part of their struggle is because there's been so much inconsistency and so much change that yet again, they're looking at a new leader, particularly if we talk about GW, in a new school year. So where we may be is, where's he going? And then people may ask that same question about me. Where's this superintendent going to take us? So I think the answer to that question is a couple things. Number one, are we being deliberate and intentional about developing relationships between administrators and teachers? And 2, how much time is it going to take? So let me say it this way. A couple things that we've done differently this year. Last year, and again, I'm not criticizing anybody about this, but last year our principals didn't meet on a regular basis. We didn't meet monthly. We didn't have a convocation in the beginning of the year, beginning of the school year, and then mid-year. We had a convocation on January 5th. So there's been much more interaction, I would argue, between this administrative team and our teachers principals and teachers and building relationships across schools. So we've made a significant investment in building those relationships across schools. And let me say this about, three of our new principals, or principals in their first or second year, are receiving training through Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech has a recently appointed administrators program. Well, so we've invested in three of our newest principals to ensure they're successful as principals. So we're doing, the short answer is this, we're doing everything possible to make sure that it's the right marriage.
Okay. My second one would be, and you use the word behavior often. And do you agree or disagree that a behavioral problem or a behavioral student in the classroom creates other students to misbehave? And should we not be focusing on academics and not so much on behavior in certain problem students? Let me ask you, should we not be separating the good from the bad? I'm not saying any kid's bad, don't try them. I love all kids, but I'm just saying they do have influence on other kids.
That's a tough question for several reasons. One, I think it depends on the child and why the child is misbehaving. Some children may misbehave because they can't connect to what's happening academically. Maybe they don't have the skill. Maybe their home circumstances are such that their needs haven't been met. So their ability to focus in the classroom may impact that. So it's a hard question to answer because it depends. But I think that there's a relationship between engagement in academic in learning and behavior. And the more students are engaged, the less likely they are to misbehave. So it's a hard question to answer. I think the short answer is we got to focus on all of it. We got to focus on the academic piece and the behavior piece. I don't know that they necessarily operate in isolation.
But you would agree that a student is totally disrespectful to a teacher or principal or assistant principal should be disciplined rather quickly.
I don't
and
believe
firmly.
I'll say it like I'm a parent myself. As a matter of fact, today is my daughter's 17th birthday.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanh you very much.
To her.
Thursday's my wife's birthday. Tough week. I believe that you have to address it. It would be the same as me as a parent ignoring a disrespectful behavior from my own child. We have to address it. And that's what positive behavior intervention support allows us to do. It creates the mechanism consistently across all classrooms and all teachers of how we address behavior. So if we have a teacher in this classroom has this expectation, and a teacher in this classroom has this expectation, a teacher in another classroom has that, that's going to create inconsistency. Shouldn't the expectation be the same regardless of what classroom you're in? So the answer to your question is we're trying to make sure that the expectations for all of our staff are common and that they're clear for all students. So this idea that I didn't know how to behave, you know how to behave. You chose not to. So we're going to be very deliberate about addressing.
Well, and I have read your code of conduct, and it's very good.
Mm-hmm.
I just encourage the teachers,
right,
principals to enforce that
right,
code of conduct that is written. My next one is, I'm concerned that on the warn list, except for Galileo and Langston, and I'm not sure how Langston fits in there, but my concern is Westwood, Bonner, and GW are on that warn list.
Right.
Now, specifically, what does that mean?
That means,
if they do not show improvement, what does that mean?
Well, first of all, let me clarify what it means. It doesn't mean that the entire school is failing. GW is on the warn list because they had a decline in math performance, but not in the other areas. But in mathematics specifically, they had a decline from last year, from the previous year, from the year before last to this past year. So I don't have all that information in front of me, but the warn means you could be warned in a particular area, like social studies or mathematics. So it doesn't mean that there's underperformance across the entire school. It could be a particular academic area, and in GW's case, it's mathematics.
But it doesn't have anything to do with teacher-student ratio?
No.
Okay.
It really has everything to do with academic performance.
And my last item, Mayor, is I want you to know, Dr. Jones, that I do support the Danville Public Schools.
Oh, I have no doubt.
And I do want to do all I can to assist the schools in becoming the great schools that I know that they can. And I like the things that you believe in, and I also believe in those same things. Thank you.
Thank you.
You strike me as a very passionate man.
I am.
And I think that passion speaks for itself in terms of your support. So certainly I appreciate your support, and I know our school staff and students appreciate your support. And I know you have family investment in supporting our school students.
Mr. Campbell, Ms. Vogler, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Buckner.
Dr. Jones, it was a joy, and I really mean a joy, the presentation that was made with the school board and council meeting on Tuesday before last. It was very exciting to see how you are tackling the issues, and also the youth council that was present there. First of all, I'd like for you to, I see some of your school board members that are here. Maybe you want to.
There's at least Mr. Gold's here.
Ms. Jones is in the back.
Ms. Sharon Jones.
So glad they could be here. I want to piggyback off some things already been said. Mr. Raleigh said something about a handful, and I do agree, a handful. Seem like some of the problems that we have, especially George Washington, is we have a lot of good things that are going on. I feel that the media is not advertising the good things that are happening there, but they do speak quickly about the bad things. And I wish there was some way that we can sell what is going on good in the school system. I think that's very important. The handful that is bad, you got some kids are just bad. And of course, when we lose them or suspend them, you lose money. Is there any type of way, some type of way of a minor boot camp setting? They need discipline, maybe with the parents' approval or whatever. I think that could really change a child around, rather for them to end up in prison. And then, of course, the statistics about going to court for students, not only going to court, but the state of Virginia is #1 in the nation for arresting students. We have a serious problem. So if there's some type of way that we could implement some type of initiative rather than for them actually be there after they're 18, I think that would be great.
Well, we have. I mean, again, it's not accidental that the enrollment at Langston has doubled. So those students who have had the most difficulty performing behaviorally and being compliant are not at GW or any of the other schools for that matter. So and then the same things that we do to try to support students based on that org chart I showed you of how we're supporting students who are struggling, those same things are being provided to students that are at Langston Focus School. So the idea is to reduce the number of students that are out of school, not getting any kind of education at all. And I know tomorrow morning, you and I will be sitting in a meeting with some folks from the state level who have some grant funding to institute some programs, boot camps, that kind of thing. So because Virginia has been a school that has a state that has a number of students they refer to the juvenile justice system, there are funds now to try to counter some of that. So I think there's significant opportunity to be more creative about what we do to try to channel students down the right path. I was involved in a meeting last week with other kind of grant funding that will enable us to do the boot camp types of programs. I just received a letter in my office last week. There's a Commonwealth Challenge program, which is sort of a military style boot camp. You actually have to technically drop out to be in that, but I just got a letter from the folks at the Commonwealth Challenge program about one of our students that's thriving in that boot camp type of program. So the other part of it, in addition to what we're doing in the division, there are opportunities across the state to connect some of our kids to ensure that they don't end up in a Department of Corrections.
Okay, and lastly, We talked about Langston. 40-some students has increased to 100.
Yes, sir.
The capacity of the school is around, was 600 to 800 at one time?
There's plenty of room for growth.
What about the extra space? Is there any plans?
That'll be something that will be presented once we finalize our capital improvement.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Well,
Yeah, Dr. Jones, I want to, like the others who spoke before, thank you for coming tonight. I know this was the presentation you shared with council last week, but I'm glad that you came tonight, not only for us to hear it again and for those who maybe forgotten things, but also for the public who's here tonight and those watching on television. I mean, this is important information, and so I'm glad that you were here to share it again and to answer questions. I also want to echo, some things that have been mentioned, and specifically want to thank you for the efforts you've made regarding Langston and to address some of the problems that we've had in getting students over there. As has been said, the vast majority of the students at GW are good students who are there and want to learn, and that they're there to get an education. And we're talking about a small percentage of students who seem to want to continually disrupt these classes, and some have been moved already, and probably more coming down the line. And as you mentioned, we don't want to give up on any students. No. But at the same time, we can't sacrifice the majority of students who are there to learn and are having a hard time because of those who just don't want to behave. So I want to thank you for your efforts on that. But we do have some great students, and some of them are serving on the youth council. I was glad that we were all able to meet the school board, city council, and the youth council last week. I think was very informative. And I just wanted to say, we had asked them to reach out to council and gave them our information. I've already heard from a few of them already in the past week, contacted me about things and ideas that they have and events that they want to help put on. So it's encouraging, and we have a great school system, I think, that has challenges like any other. And I'm glad that it seems that we're all getting on the same page now to work together. And even though council's not involved in the day-to-day operation, we do have a hand in working with the school board and working with you. And so I think it's important that we're all on the same page and we're all heading in the same direction. And it seems that's where we're going now. And I'm happy to see it, and I'm glad for the leadership that you've provided coming in here. You buddies mentioned you had your hands full, especially early on, but everything that we've seen so far, I'm very encouraged about the changes that are being made. So thank you.
Thank you. Let me just mention one other thing, Councilman Campbell's question about Langston. Just remind the council too that as we roll through our capital improvement plan, for example, you heard me mention that Johnson is a school that when we begin to renovate that school, we may have to relocate those students depending on what we learn from our study. So Langston may be a place as a swing space, potentially, if we need to relocate an entire school to address the capital improvement needs at a particular school. So even though the public wants to know what the plan is for Langston, it does provide us an opportunity to be able to take care of some significant needs in some schools temporarily and using that space as a swing space. So that agility is something for now that I think is an advantage for us.
Ms. Jones.
A lot of presentations, when people come before council, it's important, but this is very important, and your presentation was fantastic because there are a number of people who's watching tonight, and the only thing they do is receive their newspaper, and as Mr. Vogler stated, they see the negativity. Mr. Gilstrap, myself, and two of your school board members, Sharon Dones and Renee Hughes, had the opportunity to get out there in it. And we toured George Washington High School. After we toured George Washington High School, the four of us put our minds together and put our ideas together on paper, and then you invite us to your office. When we came to your office, we all sat there together with yourself and Dr. Osborne, and one of the things that you said, I agree, but just give me time. In a short time, in just that short period of time, then see the number of changes that have taken place at George Washington High School. As Forrest stated, those things are not being reported. I met with 4 George Washington High School students today. What people tend to not understand is not only are we council members, we're parents, right. We're grandparents. Right. And people tend to get that kind of confused. I have a son at George Washington High School. And when you start reading all of this stuff and hearing all of this stuff, you want to be able to say, okay, what can I do as not only a city councilman, but what can I do as a father? So we meet as a grandfather. So we immediately went into the school system, not so much to be criticizers, but to see what we could do to make a difference. And we put that stuff down and we brought it to you. And I have to agree with everybody. Every time you and I met, you and I don't get a chance to talk about your daughter's birthday or your wife's birthday. We talk about Danville Public Schools at the games. We're talking about Danville Public Schools. You're pulling out your phone, you're showing out pictures. You're very passionate about making a difference. Here's my question. When we left our meeting last week, and every day, almost every day, someone asked me to ask you this because they don't get an opportunity to ask you this.
Okay.
Here's the opportunity. What they want to know, what can the public do to help you?
Well, the most important thing they can do, and there have been a number of citizens who have reached out to us who have signed up to volunteer. So the most important thing the public can do is volunteer. Go through our screening process, volunteer in the classroom, read to a child, whatever that volunteer experience will provide. That's the most important thing they can do. The second thing that I think the public can do is to not generalize about what happens in our schools. Certainly we have challenges, but when I sit in my seat and say there's more good than bad, some people may have trouble believing that. But the harsh reality is what I presented to the council tonight doesn't make headlines. Hopefully, among my media friends here tonight, it will. But I have challenged the media to say, let's talk about a balanced perspective. Let's talk about the number of students who graduated from George Washington High School who are in college who are thriving. How about telling that story? Because there's a perception that the majority of students aren't being successful, and it's just not true. So I think the most important thing the public can do is volunteer, get involved in the school, learn firsthand. I commend Councilman, you learned firsthand what happens in schools. Well, I would encourage the public to do that, and the best way to do that is to volunteer.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because I also for years, I want to thank this council because your presentation at George Washington High School last week was so great because for years I heard in this council chamber, and it frustrated me, that's an elected body being a school board and we're an elected body. So let that elected body do what they're doing and we'll do what we want to do. Well, a lot of funding that comes to Danville Public Schools come from this elected body.
Absolutely.
And I'm so thankful that Ms. Dones, and she's here, and Ms. Hughes said to Mr. Gilstrap and I, let's work together.
Yes.
And I'm thankful for that. The last thing I want to say, I commend you on January 25th. You talked about it. You're bringing these organizations together like social services and all these organizations together on the 25th. Your social work and everybody's been contacting us. Many council members will be there to see what we can do as a community together to bring all these resources together so we can stop our young people getting incarcerated, stop our young people from dropping out of school, and work together as a community and together collectively instead of individually. Thank you so much, Dr. Jones.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
January 25th is the date that we're pulling all the support organizations, for lack of a better word, together to ensure that we have a wide enough support net so that if a student's struggling, we can meet their need by networking with all the agencies in our community. So it's going to be a very important day.
Very important day because there's so many people who've been hearing. So many people are homeless in our community. We don't know anything about that, but your social workers are finding out that there are kids out there who are living in abandoned houses who are homeless and they don't know where to get those resources from. So that's going to be a very powerful meeting that day. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Buckner.
Yeah, Dr. Jones, thank you for your presentation Tuesday, and your school board and the youth council. It was just a great meeting all the way around. I had a few concerns about Langston, and you've definitely hit all those concerns of mine. Thank you for that. January 25th, I look forward to participating at that. And if there's ever anything we can do, anything you ever need from council, please don't hesitate to come. We're all in this together, and nobody's going to fix us but us. So thank you so much for everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, at our meeting last week, the youth council just was awed by their presence. They just, you could tell these were intelligent students who want to learn. Unfortunately, I think all of us sense that some of them don't always feel safe in the schools. And I know you're here to turn that around. I'm a little different from Fred. The first time I heard you about a year ago, before you even came, you were studying the situation, and I told somebody after the meeting, after I heard you talk the first time, I got good vibes from you. And I thought you would be successful, and I've not been disappointed. I think your plan, short-term and long-term, to improve this situation is going to work. But it's going to take all of us. I'm confident with the school board's help and council, whatever we can do to assist you, we'll make this work. This is a vitally important issue, I mean, to the economic and educational viability of this city. When employers come, when their employees, prospective employees, professional people come, they want to know about how good is the health care, how good is the police force. They want to know how good are the schools. And how safe, and now recently it's been how safe are your schools? And I'm getting that question when I'm interviewing people for positions at the hospital. We've got to turn this around. It's not going to be easy.
No.
It's not going to be short term. It's going to be long term.
Well,
But we've got to turn it around because failure is not an option.
it is not.
It is not an option.
And I would argue that the only thing more important than learning is safety, because if there's no safety, there's no learning.
Right.
And so many of the changes that we instituted are exactly that. I described it this way, based on some. Again, I don't want to beat up GW too much, but I've been in GW, almost every day, almost every week, in this new year, and I said to someone the other day that I actually began to see some students that I did not notice before. And what I meant by that was, because of the things we put in place, I think you will see students who were sort of in the shadows because all the negative students were getting all the attention. I think what I've observed anyway is some of those students that may have sort of been in the shadows aren't in the shadows anymore because we've addressed the issue of school safety, and that's an ongoing issue. We will continue to address the issue of safety, but we certainly have put some things in place to ensure that there's supervision everywhere in that building, and it has had an impact. So again, I would encourage the public, and I would encourage council, if you have not visited George Washington in 2016, please do.
Thank you. Mr. Gilstrap.
I forgot one of my questions earlier, Dr. Jones, but on your state accountability outcome, there's no mention of W.W. Moore Detention School, which is my understanding comes under the school board also.
It's considered a state facility, not a our staff service it, but it's considered a state facility.
It's a state facility,
Yes,
and not a school facility. So my understanding, they have a pretty good program.
They do. But that's considered a state-operated facility.
You see the director of W.W. Moore just
I
smiling
saw,
over there?
I saw that. I saw her smiling.
Dr. Jones, you've been here about 6 months now, and you have been working very, very hard. We are in this together, as you know, City Council and the school board. The students in your school system are our students, and we are committed to doing the best we can to make sure that 100% of all of them are successful. I like to think your style of addressing issues, and I say this very candidly, straight up, you address it straight up, no excuses. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You talk about your plan, you produce your plan, and you explain your plan, and you show the results of your plan as your plan is being worked. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you.
And I wish the best for you. Also, we have 2 school board members tonight, and Stephen Gold is here. Ms. Stone, will you stand? I know you're here, but we can't really see you. Will you please stand? Ms. Stone? Thank you as well for coming, and thanks to all the school board members. And we know that we have more work to do. And I say we, collectively.
Thank you.
Okay? Not an us and them. We are in together. And thank you very, very much, and the best of luck to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I am very pleased to serve as superintendent of schools.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have from the State Department of Veteran Services, Ms. Nicole Cruz. Will you please join us? Welcome.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It is an honor to speak with you this evening to enlighten you about the Virginia Department of Veteran Services. Our office is located at 139A Deer Run Road, here in the great city of Danville, Virginia. Our hours of service are Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. The mission of the Virginia Department of Veteran Services is to serve Virginia's veterans, members of the Virginia National Guard, Virginia residents in the Armed Forces Reserves, and their family members by ensuring that they receive timely transition, benefits, health care, and long-term care and recognition they have earned through service to our country and the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Virginia Department of Veteran Services advocates for Virginia veterans, and we connect them to the benefits and services. We have current information on federal, state, and local veteran programs and entitlements through a network of 26 benefit offices through the Commonwealth of Virginia. All of our services are free. The Commonwealth is home to 3 state veteran cemeteries: the Virginia Veteran Cemetery in Amelia, the Albert G. Horton Jr. Memorial Veterans Cemetery in Suffolk, and the Southwest Virginia Veterans Cemetery in Dublin. Also, we have 2 Veterans State Care Centers, the Virginia Veterans Care Center in Roanoke, Virginia, and the Cedar and Barfoot Care Center in Richmond, Virginia. The Virginia Department of Veteran Services received the 2015 Governor's Technology Award. Virginia is the first and the only state to implement a timely electronic veterans claims filing system. We are now paperless. Governor McCulloch, he has declared that Virginia has housed 1,432 homeless veterans since October of 2014. And he has pledged to end veteran homelessness by the end of 2017. To my fellow veterans, Mayor Saunders, Councilmember Gilstrap, and Councilmember Jones, thank you for the job well done. Thank you for the battles won and the battles that you have fought. Thank you for your time served. Thank you for the freedom earned, red, white, and blue. Most of all, thank you for all that you do. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you for your service as well. And before you leave, we may have a question for you, Mr. Jones and Mr. Vice Mayor.
What are some of the other jurisdictions like Martin are doing for our veterans? I know Mr. Buckner last year presented us with Patriot Way, and it's very exciting. What are some of the other jurisdictions doing?
Well, honestly, the city of Martinsville does an award annually to honor a Veteran of the Year award every year. That's what the city of Martinsville is actually doing.
And Mr. Mayor, since the city of Martinsville can do it, I would like to present to Mayor Sherman Saunders for your many years of service to our country and our city, and to Mr. Gilstrap for your many years of service to our country and our city. We salute you all as Veterans of the Year for 2016. If Martinsville can do it, Danville can do it too.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's the only question I had.
Thank you, Mr. Cruz, and thank you, Councilman Jones. This is a surprise. I know that Councilman Gilstrap has done as well, and we'll take more questions and comments, but I got to tell you that this is an honor, and I was surprised, and I am very, very thankful and grateful for this recognition. Thank you so much. Mr. Gilstrap?
I too wish to thank you, and Councilman Jones, thank you for the recognition. And let me just say that being at your office and being signed up, I would encourage veterans to visit you, because you get first-rate customer service, and you do a great job. Thank you.
so much. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Well, I think Councilman Jones needs to get this award next year, if he didn't win this year. I just want to commend the VA. You know, up to about, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, if a veteran wanted health care, he had to travel to Durham or Salem for any kind of care, primary or secondary. And since the health care has been available in Danville, it's really helped my patients and other physicians' patients because they can get primary care here without traveling so far. And it's really been a boon and a benefit to these veterans. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. Dr. Middle stated that Alonzo Jones is a veteran, and also he should have gotten an award. And we appreciate your service also in the military. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Other questions, comments? Let me just say, I think what we saw tonight is another example of Councilman Jones. Not about himself, all about others. All about others, nothing for himself, and that speaks volumes. And I agree, sir, you should be recognized, and you will be. But what you did tonight is just one more example that is never about you. It's about others, and thank you so much for that. Mr. Buckner.
Just real quick, thank you all you guys, and thank all the veterans that do what they do and have done what they've done. They've done a lot of things that some of us would never dream of, and just thank you for the service that you guys provide. Thank you.
And again, thank you, Ms. Cruz, and again, thank you for your service to our country as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Under communication, citizens desire to speak on matters not listed on the agenda will be heard at this time. Those desire to speak on agenda items will be heard when the agenda item is considered. Communication from visitors shall be for the purpose of allowing members of the public to address council. They shall not serve as a forum for debate with council. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and address. Each individual speaker shall have 5 uninterrupted minutes. A representative of a group may have up to 10 uninterrupted minutes to make a presentation. Representatives identify the group, and a group may have no more than one spokesperson. Time will be kept using the electronic timer on the podium. The green light will be lit when the speaker begins. The yellow light indicates the speaker has 1 minute left, and the red light indicates the speaker's time is over. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Thank you. Okay, is there a motion to approve our minutes of December 15, 2015?
Motion.
Mr. Campbell, there's a second. Mr. Raleigh. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh. Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
From adopting an ordinance for a budget appropriation for the Patton Street Drainage Improvement Project. Council, your pleasure, Mr. Shanks.
Yes, Mayor, I move for adoption of ordinance amending the FY 2016 budget appropriation ordinance transferring $400,000 from the general fund balance to provide matching funds for a VDOT revenue sharing project named Patton Street Drainage Improvements for a total appropriation of $400,000 and appropriating same.
Second, Mr. Vice Mayor. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Appointments to the following boards and commission. Mr. Vice Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have council approve resolutions appointing Cynthia Pruitt Rhodes as a member of the Southern Area Agency on Aging to fill the unexpired term of Karen White, and a resolution appointing Brandy Williamson as a member of the Social Service Advisory Board to fill the unexpired term of Wesson Claiborne Felder.
There a second. Mr. Jones. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance to rezone property from Old Town Residential to central business commercial. It may not be on your agenda, but this is a public hearing item. I open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Close the public hearing. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I move for adopting ordinance rezoning from OTR Old Town Residential to CBC Central Business Commercial Parcel ID number 24032, otherwise known as Grid 2713, Block 028, Parcel 00002 of the City of Danville, Virginia zoning district map.
Okay, there a second, Mr. Buckner. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders? Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Consider adopting an ordinance to rezone property from conditional central business commercial to central business commercial. Open the public hearing. Open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak? Close the public hearing. Mr. Vogler.
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt an ordinance rezoning from CBC-C conditional central business commercial to CBC central business commercial parcel ID number 22417, otherwise known as Grid 2713, Block 027, Parcel 0000007 of the City of Danville, Virginia zoning district map.
Second, Mr. Raleigh. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance to grant a special use permit to increase building height. Open the public hearing. Anyone wish to speak? Yes, sir. Your name, please.
Good evening, council members. I'm Mark
Good
Johnson,
evening.
LE&D Professionals. We are representing BW of Danville LLC for this request tonight. And I want to thank you, and I appreciate your time and consideration for this request.
Thank you.
I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions? Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak? Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Raleigh.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt an ordinance granting a special permit for a waiver for increase in building height in accordance with Article 3M, Section C, Item 20 of the Code of the City of Danville, Virginia, 1986, as amended at parcel ID number 04434, otherwise known as Grid 1708, Block 009, Parcel 0000060 of the City of Danville, Virginia zoning district map.
Okay, a second by Mr. Gilstrap. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Consideration of adopting an ordinance to appropriate local matching funds in relation to funds received from the Department of Criminal Justice Services. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Buckner.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve an ordinance amending the FY 2016 budget appropriation ordinance by anticipating revenues in the amount of $11,880 in federal funds from the Department of Criminal Justice Services with a local match of $1,188.
There a second? Mr. Jones. Discussion on the motion? First reading. Consideration of adopting a resolution to revise the rules governing city-owned cemeteries. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Raleigh.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adopt a resolution amending the rules and regulations of city-owned cemeteries.
There's a second by Mr. Buckner. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mayor Saunders?
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Consideration of adopting a resolution to make changes to the Danville Regional Airport minimum operating standards. Mr. Campbell.
Mr. Mayor, I move for adopting the resolution providing a certain amendment of the Danville Regional Airport's minimum operational standards.
Okay, there a second. Mr. Raleigh. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye. Consideration of adopting an ordinance to provide a competitive industrial rate comparable to other Virginia utilities. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Shanks.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move for adoption of ordinance authorizing Danville Utilities to create a large customer electric distribution rate using market rate power in order to provide competitive electric industrial rates comparable to other Virginia utilities.
Second, Mr. Buckner. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Vogler.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're doing this tonight. I support this, and I just wanted to clarify for anyone who may wonder watching this or is here tonight, and for our friends in the media, if they can help make sure this message gets out. This will not cause in any kind of way a rate hike for residential users. I know that had been, some people had asked about it because we were going to make this change for industrial. Would that impact residential use? And it will not, and that's important. And I think that some of us on council had that concern and wanted that clarified. But the bottom line is we have to be more competitive if we're going to have a strong economy here. And we've been told pretty unequivocally that the rates for our large industrial users were not competitive, and it was causing them to have to move some of their operations to other places. So we needed to do this to be competitive. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
I, L.G. Campbell Jr., do hereby state that I have a conflict of interest regarding the consideration of an ordinance to create a large customer electric distribution rate listed on the agenda as new business item. Therefore, pursuant to the State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act, Virginia Code 2.2-3112, I must abstain from voting on this agenda item.
Mr. Gilstrap?
Aye.
Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Yes, I, Gary P. Miller, do hereby state that I have a conflict of interest regarding the consideration of an ordinance to create a large customer electrical distribution rate listed on the agenda as new business item G. Therefore, pursuant to the State and Local Government Conflict of Interest Act, Virginia Code 22-31112, I must abstain from voting on this agenda item.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Consideration of approving a resolution pertaining to the Land Bank Entities Act. Ms. Vogler.
Mr. Mayor, I move to a resolution authorizing and approving support of the Land Bank Entities Act that will allow localities to establish a land bank entity to address vacant, abandoned, and tax delinquent properties.
Mr. Gilstrap seconds the motion. Discussion on the motion. Mr.
Yeah, just a brief background on this for those who had questions, and I know that this is kind of a new concept, and I've gotten some questions about it from citizens. So about a year and a half ago, a land bank was a proposal that I brought to council, and we had discussion about it, and there seemed to be some support for, but we found out that we weren't able to do what we wanted to do to the extent without changes made at the state level. So I reached out to Delegate Marshall and started working with him, and in the past year went through the process with the Virginia Housing Commission, and they brought in the gentleman who has literally wrote the book on land banking that was used in these other states that have done it. The bottom line is it's going to make it easier to get these properties, these blighted properties, back in the hands of people who want to fix them up, who want to get them turned around and to get them off the city's hands. It's going to build stronger neighborhoods, and it's going to save taxpayer money, and it's just another tool for us to have in addressing blight. So I'm glad council is going to pass this resolution tonight, and from what I understand, there's a very strong chance this will get passed in the General Assembly, and also having the support of the council, I'm sure, will help in that. So I'm glad that we're having this. I want to thank council. I want to thank Earl Reynolds for his help in this over the past year. Councilman Buckner, who came up to some of those meetings, and the mayor, who was there as well when we were in Richmond for one of the committee meetings on this. So I just want to thank everyone involved for making this happen. Thank you, Mayor.
And you're glad that council is going to pass this and we have not voted yet?
I'm confident and
Further discussion?
Judge.
Further discussion? Please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner?
Aye.
Reverend Campbell?
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap? Mr. Jones?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Raleigh?
Aye.
Mayor Saunders?
Aye.
Mr. Shanks?
Aye.
Mr. Vogler?
Aye.
Consideration of approving a resolution that will support a tax certification requirement for real estate transactions. Council, your pleasure. Mr. Vice Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to propose a resolution authorizing and approving support of a tax certification requirement for real estate transactions to ensure that all delinquent taxes and municipal liens are paid.
Second, Mr. Buckner. Discussion on the motion. Please call the roll.
Reverend Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Aye.
Mr. Jones.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Miller. Mr. Raleigh.
Aye.
Mayor Saunders.
Aye.
Mr. Shanks.
Aye.
Mr. Vogler.
Aye.
Mr. Buckner.
Aye.
Communication, Mr. Manager.
I have nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Attorney?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to express my congratulations both to you and Councilman Gilstrap for your Veterans of the Year awards. My dad was a combat veteran, so veterans are always a soft spot in my heart.
Thank you, sir. And thank you for your late father's service as well. Okay, Madam Clerk?
Nothing, sir.
Okay, please call the roll.
Mr. Buckner.
Yeah, just wanted to let everybody know who doesn't already know that there's some inclement weather headed our way. Please stay tuned to our local media outlets and social media for updates, and I'm sure there'll be some cold weather shelters set up in different areas of the city. Just stay warm, and if you see somebody and you hadn't heard from somebody in a while, just check on them and make sure everybody's okay. That's all tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Campbell.
Yes, it was a great weekend with the Martin Luther King celebration, activities all week long. The speech, the march was very, very exciting. I want to commend Avery College, Ms. Alexis Earhart for the work along with the Rotary on Sunday afternoon. It was a wonderful experience and the community coming together to engage how we can make our community better. It was very, very nice, and I'd like to see that continue. Also, it was a great excitement to be at the Gene Haas Center, Charles Hawkins building, to see how Danville is so far advanced in reference to advanced manufacturing. We have turned the corner. I'm just excited of what's coming to Danville, and I'm looking forward and letting our citizens know that great prosperity is coming to Danville. Our biggest weakness is that we have the tools. We need more students to engage, that they can be prepared, they'll be ready for the jobs that are coming to our area. I'd like to thank Dr. Jones once again for the meeting that we had last week. It was very informative. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Gilstrap.
Yes, I would like to thank everyone for attending, and especially our guests. And Dr. Jones, thank you for your presentation. And Ms. Cruz, thank you for your presentation. And Mrs. Tanner, you didn't make a presentation, but thank you for your communications with us prior to the meeting. And Alonzo and Ms. Cruz, thank you for the award. I cherish it. And you mentioned that your son was a student at GW. I understand he plays basketball, and there's no doubt in my mind he can beat you every day of the week.
No doubt.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Jones.
It's been a good night, Mr. Mayor, to see our superintendent talk about our young people, our teachers, and how our community is moving forward, to see Ms. Cruz talk about our veterans and all that you and Mr. Gilstrap do for our community. It's just not enough. I would like to say to Dr. Jones, thank you so much, because when I ask you the question, what can the public do to help, we hear often that parents need to be parents. That's not what you said. I like what you said. You said volunteer. If you really want to see what a little Alonzo Jr. is doing in the school, volunteer. So those of you all, please, if you really want to see what's going on and what's happening, myself along with the mayor had the opportunity to attend Woodbury, and some amazing things are happening in our Danville public schools, and Mr. Gilstrap and I saw it. So Dr. Jones, thank you so much. Happy birthday to your daughter, to your wife, and I hope your mother-in-law is feeling much better. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Miller.
I want to recognize Lori Wilmoth from the Chamber of Commerce. I know the Pennsylvania County meetings are probably a little more exciting, and you probably get to those a little more often than you do get here, but we love to have you here, and come anytime. The community market continues on Saturdays 10 to 2. I went last week. It was very well attended. May be subject to snow this weekend, but please try to support the community winter market. Jason Gray is here from Utilities, and this was peak power day. And you saw in the paper this morning, we were supposed to cut power between 7 to 9 this morning. I turned down all my thermostats. I told my wife she couldn't do any dishwashing or cleaning or washing of clothes till after 9 o'clock. What was the report? It worked. We cut the peak power from like 229 down to 197 this year. So that means we pay less charges, transmission charges, and per this year. So great job, Danville. The Martin Luther King March Sunday, the breakfast, all these were great and inspiring activities this weekend. And it's just a great weekend for all these things that go on in the city and how the city supports these. And again, the advanced manufacturing, this is dear to all the council's heart. We're firmly behind you. We're dismayed by the lack of support by the Tobacco Commission, but we'll go on without them if need be. But this is something that's got to be done for Danville. It's so important for our workforce to draw industries here. We have to have a good workforce. That's more important than the shell building. You've got to have the workforce to get the companies to come here. So we're behind you on that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Raleigh?
Council has probably, over the last 5 days, seen me be very vocal in the newspaper and also on TV about the train crossing at Clearview Drive and West Main Street. In my opinion, it's a major accident waiting to happen. It started back when gas was $4. It's not because I live out there. I want to make sure of that first. I wouldn't live anywhere else. I love it. But once gas got to $4 a gallon, you saw train traffic pick up. I'm assuming that it was cheaper to haul freight, or it was competitive anyway with truck. We have seen traffic picked up tremendously over the last 4 or 5 years, and whether the railroad admits it or not, I can personally tell you we've had 4 incidents at that crossing in the last 12 months. I've been stopped myself in line 3 of them, so I know what's happened. I couldn't tell you those exact dates, but I'll tell you from now on the exact dates and times. We have a community that literally has one way out, and that's to go through the golf club on some golf carts and back through the maintenance shed. But in 2 of those 4 instances that I'm talking about in the last 12 months, the trains were so long it blocked both entrances. I live on Acorn Lane, and it's named Acorn Lane for a reason. It's a lot of mature oak trees. If last Thursday we had a 3-hour stoppage on a train that was supposedly, take them for their word, that it had mechanical problems. But I can promise you, if you ever had a house fire now, it wouldn't burn one house down. It'd burn a whole street down because of these mature trees. It's a beautiful area. It could burn the whole neighborhood down if you were 3 hours before you could get a fire truck in there. We all know that heart attacks and strokes can now be, when you get it quickly, can be treated not only to save somebody's life, but to really almost come back to normal. So response time is quick. Bottom line is we need to do something. So that's why I've been very vocal. In my opinion, the railroad, we've only gotten their PR people. We have not gotten to the level of person that we need to get to. So I've really been, to tell you the truth, I've been trying to tick them off. I'm probably not going to do it, but the railroad's a railroad. Now, I asked, and this morning, our city engineer, Mr. Donovan, our interim city manager, Mr. Larkin, our fire chief, Eagle, our public works head, Mr. Dravinovich, our past and consultant city engineer, Kent Shelton, all met me at a site. To my knowledge, it's only 3 ways to ingress and egress out of there. One is to go down Creekside Drive, along the golf course and go into Hunter Street. But even if you do that, if that train blocks both passages, you still can't get out. And it's some narrow streets in there, Creekside Drive. Number 2 is to go out a vacant lot at the end of Oak Creek Drive but you've got to ford a creek, and you've got about 3/4 of a mile of asphalt you'd have to put down. It's not farmland, it's just land. It's nothing being grown on or anything. Very expensive. I even estimate $1 million. But there is a way, if we have some cooperation from the railroad and some cooperation from a private citizen. Running parallel to those tracks off of Oak Creek Drive, there's a cemetery, an old cemetery there. We have numerous Confederate soldiers buried there, and others. It's a gravel road that runs parallel, and then a railroad spur. Back in the old days, I guess when the coining plant was built, there was a railroad spur that came off of those tracks and went down to Corning. There's also a natural gas pipeline that runs through there that already has well-kept, hard ground that you could use and not do anything to, maybe trim a few of the trees up, but not much. So we all came out this morning in that 20-degree weather and stayed about 30 minutes and came up with some ideas. I've asked Rick Dravinovich to go back now and try to put some cost and some things that we could do. We got to see what it is. In the interim, we would have to have Mr. William Gentry to look at some easement on some land. He owns that old Corning property. It'd have to be some easements there. And more importantly, it would have to be some easements on that a spur that comes off that have not been used, I bet you, in 30 years. Some of the rails were already down ground level, grass all grown up in it. So before we go to the, before I ask council permission to go to the railroad or the city's permission, I want to make sure that we understand from Rick, the city engineers, what can we do. I think we can use some of that crushed brick from the site at Schofield that we're hauling out of there now. Talking with Rick today, I think we can use some asphalt tailings or millings, I guess you would call it. Before we go pave something, you see the big equipment that tears up the old asphalt. They call that asphalt millings. That we could put together something over that spur and not have to have, I don't think, a ton of cost. Not $1 million worth anyway. So I will ask for your indulgence that we continue to look at this, come up with what a cost would be. Mr. Gentry, I talked to a representative of Mr. Gentry today. They are willing. It's so funny. As I was trying to call that representative, just 20 minutes before that, they were trying to call me saying that they want to sit down and see what they can work out with any easement on any land that they may own. They told me that today. So that's kind of where we stand. I wanted to get you up to date and what we're trying to do. I think it's a major catastrophe waiting to happen, and I'm hoping that we can get our act together, talk with Mr. Gentry, and then go to the railroad with a really good plan that would give the railroad a lot of goodwill if we could do something with an easement or a temporary easement even on that spur.
Mr. Mayor, can I give a follow-up to that?
Yes.
I don't live there, but I don't believe any subdivision or anybody must have an emergency exit. When somebody has a heart attack and they have a blocked off artery, we have 90 minutes to get that open. That's our time schedule. To get into the hospital, get that artery open, or major damage occurs to the heart. The last two stoppages would have destroyed that 90 minutes. Neither one of them. If somebody had a heart attack during that time, neither time would the patients have made it to the hospital.
And Mr. Mayor, I don't want, I've said many times, remember when we had the Blue Park issue where we wanted to put a trail down and the neighbors there didn't want it, and of course one of my questions were, well, what the heck did you move there for? You knew the park was right there. Well, I knew when I moved in 2006, when I moved back to Danville, that's the place I wanted to live. I knew about it, and but we are seeing this happen now more and more frequently. That's what worries me, and for longer periods of time. And I can tell you, I am ticked off at the railroad because they have never called the city of Danville to let them know. You might have read it in the paper they did. I checked with Chief Eagle today. No call ever came into the fire department. The fire department was calling them, wanting to know how much longer, because in that, whether you know or not, they had a small little fire at Danville Golf Club during that 3-hour period. You couldn't get to them. I mean, they got it and everything was fine and all, but it's just an accident waiting to happen with these trains more and more often. For whatever reason, I got a lot of questions, you know. You always have breakdowns because you got a lot going, but how come it happens right there more often than it does other places? So I just want to make sure that I come back to you with a good plan, and then we see where we go from there, because we will have to have, in my opinion, help from the railroad. And I hope they would see that it's a good plan, that there would be tons of goodwill in doing that, and that it would help us get emergency vehicles in and out of that whenever they did have a blockage of more than 5 minutes. Or every one that I've seen on the breakdown, and 4 in the last year, have been 1 hour or more in length, 1 hour or more. So I just wanted to give that update, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much.
For that slip of the tongue, Mr. Raleigh, you can expect to be fined for that. Please continue. Call the roll.
Mr. Shanks?
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that. It was about 6 or 8 months ago that I asked the staff to put together a report on the legal aspects of them, Norfolk Southern, blocking the railroad. And I think there are laws that do apply. And before we go off, I mean, I concur there's a tremendous problem. But before we go off and try to come up with very expensive solutions, I would like to look at the legal solution, if there are any, to be included in that debate. Because I have talked to citizens who have heard radio transmissions where it's a schedule issue for Norfolk and Southern, and someone said, "Tell them you're broken down." And I've heard that, been told that by numerous people on more than one occasion. So, and I understand there's some curves that may create some issues further south, that therefore they might want to schedule a delay on one of the trains so that the other train can pass. I don't think maybe this particular occasion was that, but I do believe that Norfolk Southern is taking advantage of a situation, and we're not doing anything about it. And even if it is, I think the law is on the book where a private citizen can ask the police department to issue a citation to the engineer or someone on that train. Even that, if it becomes a legal issue, as small as it is, but it ties up manpower and things like that, I think we need to push those issues and push the law as far as it is. And if the law doesn't cover this situation, it should, but if it doesn't, we should seek a legislative remedy if it's not already there. So I concur the problem's serious. There are health and safety and issues involved that need to be taken care of, but I hope we will look at the legislative or the legal solution as well. Finally, that wasn't on my list. I did have 2 or 3 other things I wanted to mention. Mentioned earlier the Gene Haas School for Precision Tooling at DCC. We all toured it. Most of us toured it last week. That is an awesome program that I hope the public and students, high school students, will consider looking that up, because it has a tremendous outcome. It's a proven outcome, and it's a program at DCC that's just been a tremendous success. Dr. Jones, thank you so much. Again, I appreciate everything that you've brought here with your experience and your knowledge and your game plan. And I'm really looking forward to where you where you lead this city. And as everyone will admit, safety is one of the big issues, as you stated. But our education system means so much to our community with regard to crime, with regard to economic development, and I think you're the man that's going to help us lead lead us into the future. Finally, just 2 other well, just one other item. You know, we've had two other items. We've had some really positive, start off 2016 with some really positive effort by the school system. Yeah, the precision tooling program at DCC. I think that the action we took today with regard to the industrial rates for large customers, and these customers, I think that's just a tremendous step forward for our economic development program. These customers are the best customers that the city has with regard to level power. I mean, they're the easiest to predict with regard to how much power they're going to need year in and year out. They're also, most of them are also the more efficient customers. So I think this was a tremendous step in economic development, and I'm looking forward to that industrial rate going into place. And I guess, Mayor, that's all I had, but I think 2016 is starting off on a good foot for Danville, and I look forward to where it takes us.
Thank you.
Mr. Vogler?
Yeah, I have a few points. The first is I also want to mention the precision machining program that we have here in Danville, and for those who were able to be there for the meeting last week at the Gene Haas Center. But this program has been a tremendous success for Danville and for this region, and I know myself and many of us on council have been on the record from the beginning supporting having that program made available at GW. It's something I still support. I know we've had some bumps in the road in terms of getting the funding for that, but I still support making that program available at GW because of not only what's available now, but what's coming down the pipeline. We had the former VP of Rolls-Royce who was there at that meeting at the Gene Haas Center, and not only said that the Gene Haas Center itself, and it's a fact, is the only facility of its kind in North America that's doing the things that they're doing there, but essentially said, you guys are sitting on a gold mine here in Danville with this precision machining program you have. There's going to be a great need for machinists, not only in this area, but around the country, but specifically in this area in the next few years. And Danville is positioned to do very well with those jobs if we continue on the path that we are. Number two, I wanted to, and I'm not going to get too deep into it because I think Buddy articulated it very well, but this issue with the train track in the Pine Tag neighborhood. This is more than just an inconvenience. It is a public safety issue. And I know it's gone on for years as long as the development has been there. But it has certainly increased, I think, in the frequency that this has happened. And I know in the 4 years that I've been on council, it's been brought up many times. And I know we even discussed it, I think, before. And I think the cost and some things, but this is happening far too often, and it is a public safety issue. As Buddy mentioned, the Danville Fire Department had a call that day that the train was broke down on the track at the Danville Golf Club. They couldn't get the trucks there, could not get the trucks over there. Thank God it was not a fire. It ended up not being the case, but if it had, you can imagine the problems that this would cause. I think Fred did bring up a good point about the legal actions that we could take, and I certainly want us to pursue that as well. I thank Buddy for his efforts on this, and about trying to find this alternative route, because I do think we're probably going to have to go in that direction. But I also think if we have a chance to crack down on Norfolk Southern for doing this, sometimes you're going to have breakdowns, you can't help it, but it seems like they're happening far too often. And I would imagine that if they start getting hit with some fines, that those breakdowns are going to be a little less frequent. So I certainly want us to look in that direction. Third, I want to, continuing along the lines of public safety, I know that I think all of us on council had the opportunity to sit down with Chief Broadfoot and Major Burke and Captain Merricks and go over some of the issues we're having regarding crime, and Captain Merricks took us, I got a chance, I guess we all did, to ride out and go out in the car and get on a street level what's going on out there. And I want to thank them for that. And, looking at it in the big picture about some of the discussions we've had, the pop-up precincts or any number of other proposals that council members have discussed and talked about, and I know we're going to have these discussions soon. Bottom line for me is that we're going to need to have more officers than what we have right now. We're going to need to hire more officers to be able to do what we've talked about doing, whether it's my proposal or any other. We're going to need more police officers. So if council is presented with a budget this year that does not allow for an increase in the number of police officers that we have in our department, I'm voting against it, period. We need to have more officers, and I know the chief has mentioned this, so I think that that is a step in the right direction, and we can have discussions about other things that can be done. But public safety is a fundamental responsibility of a local government. For me, it's the highest priority of anything that we're going to do here in the next several months, because economic development is very important. The River District's important. Education is important. All these things are important. But without a strong public safety system, none of those other things will matter. So we as a council, I feel, need to make sure we're doing everything we can to give them the tools and resources they need to keep our citizens safe. So I look forward to those conversations we're going to have in the months ahead. And lastly, I want to end on a positive note, because those of us who are on social media and stuff, you've probably seen over the last year or so, every time some website does a list, and if it's a bad list, that thing gets spread like wildfire. Everybody's sharing it. Did you see this? Did you see this? Did you see what they said about Danville? Well, there was a list that came out this morning that ranked Danville as the third most underrated city in Virginia, and it listed many of the positive things that we have, and it encouraged people, come to Danville for this reason and this reason and this reason. And if you want to get technical about it, it was a list of the most underrated cities. Number 1 and number 2 that they had listed are actually towns and not cities. So in my mind, Danville's number 1. But I want to, share the positive news. We know that there's challenges here in Danville, and we're going to do everything we can to work to address those. But there's a lot of good things happening in our city, and it's being recognized around the state and around the nation. So I'd encourage folks, if you're on social media, find that article, share it with people, and let's keep working to move Danville forward. Thank you, Mayor.
Mayor Saunders.
Mr. Raleigh, as you know, you can just ignore that fine comment, okay? I certainly agree with Mr. Schenck that we look at all the legal revenues, legal avenues to this, and revenue, money, to address this issue as well. There's no question in my mind that there has to be some, responsibility of the company to address this, monetarily and otherwise. Also, again, I want to thank Mr. Jones and Ms. Coles for this award. I've never received a Veteran of the Year award before, and it's important to me, not just for me to receive this. My grandfather served in World War I. My dad served in World War II, and my brother and I served during the Vietnam War. And most people here know that my cousin was killed in USS Cole, one of the 17 sailors. So my family really has been involved with service, and to receive this award, Mr. Jones, Ms. Cruz, is very, very important to me, and I just thank you all very much. But again, it also shows your unselfishness, because you too deserve one as well. I also want to say to Mr. Campbell, congratulations on your award that you received Saturday night of the SCLC Annual Award. Congratulations for that as well. I'd like to remind us, Ms. Cole did leave us a package with veteran information. It's a lot of good information in here, so please read this. And her contact information is on here as well on Deer Run Drive. So it's important that we look at that. And I think she said that 26 benefits centers in the state. I think that's good. That's very good. Dr. King weekend was very successful, I think, as Dr. Miller mentioned, involved the entire weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And Mr. Vice Mayor, let me thank you for those gloves Sunday evening. I had my coat, I had my hat, but I forgot my gloves. I'm so glad you had extra gloves, and I'm glad you had an extra bottle of water. So thank you so much for that. Really appreciate that. And Ms. Carolyn Liver-Scout, thank you for the information with regard to land bank that you brought tonight. Certainly we do appreciate that. And to Lori Moran, again, thank you for coming. You do a lot for our city, for our region, the whole organization, and thank you all very much, and please spread the word on that as well. And to Dr. Jones, I talked about we're in this together, and we are. And we talk about 100% of all of our students being successful. And someone will say, well, that's impossible. There are things that can throw those numbers off. No, that's the attitude. That's the attitude, 100%. That's our goal, and we'll stay with that. And clearly it's your goal. And thank you for what you're doing as well. And a special thanks to all of our city employees for what you do daily, and I do mean every single day. Many of you work on Saturdays and Sundays and holidays, Many of you are on call 24/7. So thank you so much for what you do. Mr. Buckner talked about the possibility of inclement weather that may be coming. So again, thank you for your service to our city and to our citizens, but also please be as safe as you possibly can. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.